In India, when we talk about things like sex or pleasure, it is still a taboo topic. We don't like to talk about sex despite our inflating population. We don't like to even talk about condoms. So, in a country like ours, how do we start a conversation about pleasure?
So actually, Sahar and I began working on My Muse when it wasn't even in its current avatar, when it was just a seed of an idea, around the same time that we actually started dating, which I think tells you a lot about the context, right, of where and why we kind of started this. And exactly. I think at that point, we were, I mean, younger than we are today. We were 26 and 28 or so, respectively. We were in a long distance relationship. And Sahil was getting ready to move back to India. And we were just discussing what are some things, some problems that we feel exist within our society. And like sexual health, sexual education was just one of the biggest things that we could imagine. That is just regardless of, where you live, where you come from, your age, or, what generation you are, like regardless, if you're Indian, you probably haven't talked about sex realistically or honestly with your family or in your school. Right. And we started off thinking that, look, let's start a sexual education platform. Let's give people the content and the reliable information that we so desperately need, but don't know where to find. We wanted to create a brand that approaches the idea of sex and also the idea of pleasure, more importantly, in a way that's, not sleazy, that's not weird, that's not intimidating, that's just simply a natural part of life, because that's truly what we believe it is. And that's why, if you see everything in the way that we've branded it, in the way that we communicate, it's extremely just sort of like the goal here is to normalize, and be able to even have this conversation that we are having here today, which frankly, if I'm being super honest, like a few years ago, I couldn't imagine doing that, as an Indian woman myself.
Lockdown was a watershed moment for India as reports came in saying that there was an increase in the consumption of porn. People were suddenly looking at themselves and wondering, how does sexual wellness help at this point?
Self-care and self-love, that's what's on the rise.
Yeah,
right?
That became people's priority. And
exactly.
At this time when everything else was shut out and stopped from happening in their life, like people were forced to look inward, even if they didn't want
I
to.
think when you move from that want to that need, right? And once, this idea of self-satisfaction or just really being comfortable with your own self, spending so much time with yourself on a daily basis, I think it became very clear that, look, the idea of, of sex and sexual wellness actually permeates the mental, physical, and spiritual also, right? I think it's really interesting you said this point about morality earlier. I do think once you can get out of your own way and realize that, hey, there's nothing immoral about this, that, hey, I'm not doing anything that's deviant in any way or that's shameful in any way, I think that's really when you get onto the next step of the journey, which is how do I actually make and explore, make myself feel better or make my partner feel better, explore everything that was given to me and my body, right? And I think that's super important. I think lockdown really allowed us to be in a state where everyone just had so much time on their hands, right?
If you had any insights to give generally, while you were creating your brand, did anything, did you come across anything like this that, that the lockdown, which has obviously had a lot of impact generally on so many things, did it have an impact on this as well? By any chance?
Yeah, I think usually because of the nature of the products, right, the feedback is extremely polarizing, right? Where it's just like, oh my God, you've changed my life. Thank you so much. My body didn't know it could experience things like
telling
this.
us, just being like, thank you, I just had my first orgasm ever. I still remember this one review that we got from someone where it was this married couple and the husband had bought it for his wife. And he literally wrote being like, my wife was so shy and so scared to use the products that I bought her in the beginning. But thank you so much. Thanks to My Muse, I've had the best moment of 11 years of my married life. So imagine that people who've been married, who've been intimate for so long, but at the same time, because of the lack of awareness, of education, and of experiencing, what there is to offer, people have not even had that opportunity.
I Am Besharam is another brand that is US based and sells its products in India through a website. We spoke to one of its co-founders, Raj Armani. Here's what he had to say.
And we also knew that is a kind of a domain that nobody wants to tread in because of that sharam and haya and all that. So So coincidentally, my partner, who's a very Bollywood fan, he came up with the name. When we were talking about Sharam, he said, "Let's do something anti-Sharam, anti-Sanskar, anti-Samaj." So then the only word that we thought would be very suitable, which has a very uh, common understanding, has a good ring to the name, is understood by everyone, and in daily conversation is not vulgar, not obscene, but still has a naughtiness or mischief to it, was the word Besharam. So that's how the name came about, that we will call the brand Besharam, because it's kind of making a person who is from India read the brand name, kind of connect with it, because always it was thought being Besharam you would look down upon. It's not a good thing. But here we kind of making it sound, no, that's fun. That's good. That's fantastic. Besharam is about, expressing who you are without any fear of society, without any fear of a judgment from relatives or neighbors or colleagues or friends. Because when you believe in yourself and you're confident that what your needs are, what you're doing is normal and it's real, you would not have to be in a shadow of doubt or a shame talking or doing about it. It doesn't mean that you go around screaming to the top of your lungs, about your desires or your fantasies, but it is about accepting that, yeah, that's normal. It is pleasure is my right. It is not a sin. It is not a taboo. It is not that, I can't have at a certain age, at a marital status, a single or as a partner. So it's about expressing your desire without the fear of any judgment. Besharam is also about equality. Besharam is also about advocating a sex positive community in India, which is the need of the hour and the minute. It is also about uh, making pleasure a normal conversation. It is about expressing yourself and having no concerns that, okay, I will get crucified or judged or concerned about it. So that's where Besharam's objective has evolved, and the target audience has widened from just being uh, the youth to an entire 18 to 65. So we even get a lot of dadajis and dadijis come and shop from us. They ask questions. Hey, what is suitable for my age? And they're still the beginner stages, right?
Both the brands are ensuring that it is not just business at play here. There is also an initiative to make the idea of pleasure accessible and normal through a variety of offerings.
There's a 10% audience that knows everything, that understands everything about the entire range of pleasure products. There's a complete 60% range of audience that is not so savvy but very curious. They want to know and they want to learn the basics correctly, not what was ever taught in textbooks or they've seen porn. Of course, India is the second largest consumer of porn, but they are inclined to understand the things that actually impact them, like, does size matter? Is a curved penis have any problem? Is the is do you need to wash your private parts with soap and water? Or, so there are questions that they ask, which, yes, Google will answer, which is why you see a huge splurge in sexual health and wellness content in the last 3-4 years. Because what changed in India, and I'll tell you in a moment, that caused more questions, also impacted in how we see what questions our audience is asking us. So our social media channels are consciously trying to identify the questions that the masses ask and answer them through nicer, digestible visuals and pieces that register, that will resolve the query. And also, even, it probably not be a question you had in mind, but that's a question you may come in the future in mind. So now you're enlightened.
Pleasure is a right, and these brands are making sure Indians do not just enjoy the pleasure, but also do it without judging themselves and others. While we are still figuring out how to be more aware, be it in terms of sexual health, wellness, or pleasure, there are ways of exploring this side to us.